Hey, how are you today? This is Josh Patrick, and you're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. And my guest today is Tim Redmond from Redmond Growth. And Tim is, as you can probably tell by the title of his URL, is a guy who does growth. And we're going to start off the conversation with Tim about the biggest mistake business owners make, because I'm really curious what he thinks that is. And then we'll compare it maybe to what I think it is if it's different. So let's bring Tim on. Hey, Tim, how are you today?
Well, doing really well, Josh. Like I was saying before, I just love your passion and your heart to want to really deliver tangible value to your group here. So hopefully we'll do that today.
Well, I have every confidence we will. So, Tim, what is the biggest mistake that business owners make? I'm really curious about this.
Well, it may be the biggest. It's the biggest mistakes. There's about three or four of them that really immediately come to mind. And on the marketing side, um, they usually do not define their purple cow. They don't talk about why, or how they are.
So Tim, I've got to interrupt you.
Please.
I'm going to guarantee you almost nobody on this podcast knows what a purple cow is. So can you please explain that first?
Excellent. Thank you, Josh. Yeah, Purple Cow actually came from me reading Seth Godin's book. He's a marketing guru, and he wrote this book 20 years ago. And a purple cow is he was taking a vacation in Paris with his two kids and his wife. They're driving out into the country, and they passed a farm, and he said, "Hey, look at the cows!" And the kids in the back got all excited, and they did that for three or four farms, and they saw the cows, and the kids got excited. Then they got to the fifth farm, and Seth said, "Well, there's some more cows," and the kids are like, "Yeah, we've already seen them." And so the thought hit him that he says, "Okay, now wait a minute. If there was a bright, shiny purple cow in the middle of those black and brown and white cows, those kids would still be talking about it 20 years later." And he said, whatever's not remarkable is invisible. And so it's really making sure that, number one, you really have taken the time to define to your audience what makes you different or better. Number two is really defining what that audience is, because we want to be everybody to everything. And I like to say, Josh, that you're going to widen your reach by narrowing your focus. And so that's a huge mistake that we, I see a lot of people. I've made that mistake. A lot of the folks that we help out in their business that makes that mistake. Another mistake.
Tim, I
Please.
have a question
Yes,
for you about
please.
that.
Yeah.
I'm a subcontractor, and I'm an electrical subcontractor. So, to most people, all electrical contractors kind of look the same. So, if I was an electrical contractor, how would I make myself look different?
Well, we actually have this product. We call it a one sheet, where we do a comparison of what does a typical electrical subcontractor deliver, and what do you deliver that may be different. So we take the time to do that. There's one electrical subcontractor that I started working with. His name is James Henry. He's out of the Kansas City area, and he was generating about $125,000 a month, but he didn't make any profit. So he's frustrated. And we did work on his purple cow, and we found out that he was undercharging for things he took care of, which is it's like a work of art when he laid out the electrical grid on a new house, and he would work for these luxury home builders. That became his purple cow. That these contractors or these GCs will be able to sell the house just based on his electrical work, and it was a real closing difference. Well, in the 2 years that we've worked here, he's grown now to $400,000 a month, and he's really close to 20% profit. And we've got a lot more contractors wanting to call him because we made some of those differences here of reliability of on time. Everybody says it, he delivers. The real purple cow is that he's got a methodology of laying the grid out where it looks like a piece of art. You think electrical, what? That's in the invisible places where they don't see it in the garage or underground, or in the crawl space or whatever. But that was part of it.
Okay, well, you also just talked about something else, which is a big deal, I think, which is it's not just marketing, but it's also pricing. And in my experience, most business owners are at least a little bit, if not seriously, underpriced in what they provide for service. Do you find the same thing?
I find that's one of we have this business boost, which is a 3-month process where we do a blueprint uniquely for that business. Then we actually have a whole team that actually does the kind of a do it for you. So we actually implement the blueprint. And pricing is one, it's within the first month that we reevaluate their pricing. Most people, especially service companies, especially contractors, tend to undervalue the value they create. And so we have a competitive analysis. We have recorded where their competitors are talking about what they charge us, so you can convince it. I had one guy that he was charging $50 for a service call. And so right then and there, I said, listen, I'm going to pay you more, and I'm going to call your competitor right now. And their fee was $120 for the same exact thing. I'm like, so, let's say you want to give them a deal, but how about $100 instead of $50? You're leaving. I mean, talking about cash flow issues, if you can charge a reasonable rate, that takes care of half your cash flow problems right there.
So, Tim, I have a method of coaching folks about pricing, and I'm curious, what percent of bids or proposals should be turned down because the price is too high before you know your price is high enough? Does that
That's
question make sense?
no, that's I mean, we have some people. I say when you're closing north of 50% of your bids, unless there's a real shortage of bids, if you are overwhelmed with bids and you're winning 50% of them or more, it's time for you to adjust the price. I like what's his name, Graham, in Silicon Valley. He's like a venture capitalist and the incubator, and he was really behind a lot of the Facebook and the Googles in the early stages. And he said this, Josh. He said the market price is the price that people are going to pay while they're complaining about the price. So it's like, how do you know you're charging under? Well, some people, they would rather get 80% or 70% of the closes. That's up to them. And we let owners
Nobody gets 80, or I have yet to meet any business anywhere that gets 80% close rate. And they
well,
probably exist. I just haven't. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, we have a lot
here,
of plumbers that we with the scripting that we have and different things, we're
well,
able to
that's
get a real
inbound.
high closure
Those
rate.
are inbound inquiries, different ball game.
Right.
But
It's a different thing than, say, doing a $25,000 remodel. Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah. So the way we generally tell our clients to do this is that if you're not hearing no at least 10% of the time because of price, your prices are too cheap. It's really that
Yeah,
simple.
that's a really good. I mean, it's in the eye of the beholder, and so we have some contractors that have so many bids that we have to create a qualified process to reduce the number of bids that they're going to take time to put together. And
I actually have a way of doing that.
yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, and because that makes a lot of sense to do that. We've done this with even with professional services like lawyers and CPAs and that type of thing. But for contractors, service contractors, is one thing. But if they're doing like a construction job of some kind, and
Well, I'll give you a really easy way to do that.
Yeah, please.
There's a book by Marcus Buckingham called "They Ask, You Tell."
Yeah.
And what he does is he put together a 20-minute video that had all the questions that he generally heard from prospects before they were to buy. He was in the pool business. And he would answer those. And before he would send a salesman or a salesperson out to call on that customer, they had to watch the entire 20-minute video.
Right.
So
yeah, that's
that's a really good way of
qualifying.
making sure you're qualifying your prospects and not sending salespeople out to chase their tail. At least I think so.
Yeah, I think that's the next. Yeah.
So Tim, what else would you say is a mistake that business owners make?
A huge mistake that business owners make is they do not take time for what I call a daily power planning. And daily power planning is the beginning of creating a cadence in your business where you have a set time, a set place, and a set pattern to review your business. And for me, it's you have a to-do list that's out and you have your calendar that's out, and they may be electronic. That's great. There's different windows. Then you go over all your emails, you go over all your messages, you go over all of your set questions where you're asking about the pipeline and different phases of your pipeline, current projects. It's anywhere from 6 to 8 questions that you go through this, where you actually, instead of being reactively going from fire to fire, you actually are being very proactive on your business. And then the second mistake they make is they don't force all of their business into a predictable weekly pattern where they touch all aspects of their business within a week to get feedback from the people responsible for that part of their business.
Okay, so I have a question for you about that, because this is
Please.
an issue that I think all business owners have, whether you're in the trades or not, is that how do you help them find time to do that? Because as much as these folks will say, I want to do it, when it comes down to brass tacks, they end up saying to me, I just didn't have time this week.
Yeah, so that's a response from a worker. That's not a response from a business owner.
Yeah, but that's what these guys are. They're workers. Most people in the trades.
Yeah, and that's why they're going to stay where they are, Josh. That's how they stay where they are. So if they really want to grow their business, and those are the only people we're interested in talking to, they really want to grow their business. If they just want to be busy and have a secure job, then they don't need to talk to me, and we don't need to lean into these things that they tend to resist. People are inherently resistant to change. And so, is the hard fact here is if you really want to grow your business, growing wealth is primarily building a team. It's not growing a product.
So here's the question that I have. It's, again,
yes.
You're saying, okay, I'm a guy who owns an electrical contractor again, and I want to grow my business, but I'm always getting stuck being pulled into jobs. And I'm always getting stuck to solving problems like there are emergencies every day. So how do you help a person like that change how they are in their business? What do they specifically have to do to make those changes?
All right. So when you have a fire, an emergency, at least 53% of them, I'm being facetious, but at least half of them, if not 3/4 of those emergencies, they're emergencies because you trained either your workers or you trained the client to call you just any time of the day or night. And you entertain that, and you don't draw boundaries. You don't draw focus points and you don't make tough decisions, yeah, you're just going to lose a business. Are you going to lose a business? We think that we're going to lose the business if we are not immediately available. And we talk about, as you well know, in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, he talked about the 4 quadrants. And the second quadrant is the important stuff that's not urgent. And if we take time to put a priority on those, we're not going to fall under the tyranny of the urgent and important.
Okay, but still in all, you have to answer the question: how do you go about making that change? I mean, this is a really, really difficult change for business owners to make. Probably the most difficult change they'll ever make in their life. So, what specifically can they do?
I'll say it again. I'll say it again here, Josh. It's you. What we do in our power planning, and we get our contractors, because we primarily work with electrical contractors, plumbers, builders. That's primarily who we've helped over 2,000 of these. And what we do is we begin a process called time blocking. And the time blocking is we if your busiest, craziest time of the day is between 9 and 11, that's not when you're going to time block for uninterruption. I like to get people where they get up early enough where they have uninterrupted time. And how bad you want that is how bad you're willing to say no to other things that come your way. And
so you just said something really key.
Yeah, please,
which
go
is
ahead.
coaching people to use the word no. Too many business owners want to please everybody, and they think it's their job to solve every problem. And if they learn to use the word no, they start carving off a little bit of time. And one of the things that we like people to do, Tim, is we say, look, if you're 97% tactical and 3% strategic, what do we have to do to get you to 6% strategic and 94% tactical? And that's always about learning to say no every once in a while when you used to say yes.
Yeah, so here's kind of a comical thing. We have a plumber in San Antonio who's just in our group coaching call. And our lesson was all about creating a cadence in your business during this. We had, dozens of our clients from around the country on there, mostly contractors. And my son is the one that works with him in the business. And the guy said, well, there's no way I can ever have time. There's no way I can ever have time. I said, well, your brain is obviously solving towards that end. But he created a schedule here where he had almost probably 80% of the time blocks were burning fires. And then he had some planning over here. He had some meeting with his team members over here. He said, now we're not talking about taking a lot of time to do these important things here. We're going to block most of your time as burning fires. We're only going to block a few uninterrupted times so that you can have personal power planning, team meetings, accountability, KPIs, going over the cash flow, and so we get to where we get businesses where they can run their entire business in a cadence with 4 to 5 meetings a week. Boom, that's the main thing that they need to do other than their personal planning.
Yeah, we use a methodology called SCRUM a lot with our clients.
Yeah, it's great. I grew a software company, so I'm familiar with SCRUM. Yeah.
Okay, so SCRUM is it is a really, just for folks listening, it's a planning methodology that's used primarily in the software world, but works literally everywhere.
I agree.
And one of the things which is really important for us that all the trades tell me one thing right now. Everyone tells me this. I can't get enough quality. Well, what would you think if you could reduce your labor input by 40%? That's what SCRUM does for you. So if you need 10 people, and you've got 10 people right now, and you want to grow to 14 people, if you institute SCRUM and institute it well, you're going to get the same amount of work done with 10 people you would used to use 14 or 15 people for. So
Yeah.
think about what that does to your business.
Yeah.
Does
That's
that make sense, Tim?
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so with some of these guys, getting them into some of the specific aspects of Scrum, they get glassy eyed, and I do a kind of a reverse on that to say, well, let's begin with the end in mind. Right now, your average tech is producing $20,000 a month. They can easily be at $30,000 to $35,000 a month by these things. So let's back into that and let's set up an incentive program to really celebrate their moving their production on that. It's amazing when you get it really clear to them what they can do and what they're rewarded to do. It's amazing what they actually produce here. So I've got dozens of those stories how that's worked. So yeah.
And we will help people by introducing, by not trying to introduce everything at once. We introduce one piece at a time. We might start off with a Kanban board, which is, what's in the backlog, what are we working on, what's done. And then we might say, okay, now we've got this plan here. At the end of the week, let's have a retrospective and look back at what we did. We won't
Boom.
get into all the stuff, there's a thing called Fibonacci numbers, which you use for saying how difficult stuff is. That's complicated.
Yeah.
That's at the end of the road, we go there. What we start off with is what's in the backlog, what can we do this week, and let's talk about at the end. And by the way, let's have a short 10-minute meeting every morning to say, here's our plan. Is there any problems in front of us? Pretty simple.
Yeah, I love that, Josh. That's really a lot of wisdom to that. That's for sure.
So, Tim, unfortunately, we have run out of time. And I got to talk about a couple of my very, very favorite things, which is pricing and Scrum. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And I'm sure folks will be interested, especially in the subcontracting world, even though we're sort of competitors, will be interested in finding how to find you. So if you're not watching us on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, where would somebody find you?
Well, they can just look up Redmond Growth Consulting on Google. We've got over 400 5-star reviews from contractors from all over the country. What we're doing is we're offering, if anybody wants to have a super insightful process, we offer what we call a growth plan. We typically charge $2,500 for that. And it gives them an insight of where they are in their business. It gets real clear on where they want to be in 3 years. We create a new business model to help them get there. And then we give them at least 8 to 10 concrete steps they can do on their own or with us. And we charge $2,500 for that because we give them assurance that they'll add at least $100,000 of profit to their business in the next 12 months. If they identify themselves as I love Josh Patrick, or I'm part of this show, we will waive that fee. It's at no cost. We'll provide folks, if they want to have an insightful look at their business and where it can be, we provide that growth plan at no cost. If they'll identify that, or we may even want to require that they leave a 5-star review at your podcast if they haven't already.
Cool. So I've got 2 things I'd like you to do. The first is, 5-star podcast review is always appreciated, but more importantly, an honest review is what we really want. So wherever you're
Right.
listening to this podcast, give us an honest rating and review. And while you're at it, if you happen to give us a 5-star review, you can always subscribe. I recommend you do. We've done 353 or 354 episodes now, and most of them are really pretty good. So I hope you do that.
They're excellent. I listen to a bunch of them. I'm on all kinds of podcasts all the time. Josh, you insist on talking about tangible, needle moving things. And so, and if any of your folks, they want to communicate with me on this or whatever, it's just what you have here, Tim at Redmond Growth. That's actually my email as well. It's Tim at redmondgrowth.com, and they can contact me. But I think you've got a phenomenal podcast I'd highly recommend for business owners if they want to grow their company. Just you get right down to the point, and I love that.
Well, thank you. And the second thing I'd like you to do is I've written 2 books. The second book is being for sale on my website at half price at $7.95. And it's a continuation of our first book. It's a business parable, which is a story about a business family, happens to be a manufacturing business family, who patriarch is now thinking about it's time for him to think about and start moving towards transferring his business. The book is called The Sale Ready Company. To get it, it's really easy. Just go to www.salereadycompany.com. You can get the book for $7.95. I've got 5 bonuses there. And if you're interested and brave, you can even have a 20-minute free conversation with me about anything you like. So this is Josh Patrick. We're with Tim Redmond. You're at Cracking the Cash Flow Code. Thanks a lot for stopping by. I hope to see you back here really soon.